we might have a few new faces around here, so I thought I'd do a really quick introduction. I don't think I've ever done this before on one of my YouTube streams, but I'm Keiko. I'm a mixed media artist. I also make my own handmade watercolors, and we are going to use those today. So I live in Hawaii. I'm originally from Germany, and I have a Japanese mom, so that's my mix here. I would love to welcome you all to week 2 of Aloha 24 August. And this week we're going to paint some very loose sunset, and really it's most important that you guys get into flow. Let me just show you what we're gonna paint today. So just super loose, and somehow one of my pages came out of my sketchbook, but you know, that's okay. I can find it back in there. So yeah, something like that. So really simple. We're gonna tape down the pages. You don't have to. You can actually just really, I mean, even without tape. I just find that when you tape down the areas, it lets you, you know, do really broad brush strokes, and you don't have to worry about painting into your panels. So that's where I'm gonna do it today. I also tried it out on different paper, and I found the results interesting. I mean, this is cold press paper, but it's a bit more smooth, and this is handmade cotton paper, cold press, has way more texture. So maybe when I turn the camera around, you can see the difference better. I'm not sure how well the camera picks it up from this angle. So let's turn the camera around. I'm gonna talk about supplies, and I'm gonna show you the differences between the papers one more time. Hello, hello. Hello to Vermont. Okay, so for those of you who have been in my live streams before, you know that now it's gonna be a bit shaky. When I turn the camera around and turn it onto my desk, I have to also readjust my phone holder. So, all right. And here we go. Just one more clip with the phone holder. And here we are. Please let me know if there's any issues with either the picture, if you want me to zoom in, zoom out, how the audio is. So just let me know, please, anytime in the chat. I have a separate device here on the side where I can keep an eye on the chat. I'm just gonna look over. Hi, Alina. Hi, Tracy, Susan, Debbie, Amy. Hello, Marion, Jessica. Wonderful. And Kerstin. Thanks you all for being here today. Okay, so let me just talk about these two sketchbooks real quick. This is a Kadi sketchbook. Let me get a piece of paper so I can write it down. Hold on, and a pen. You know, it's so funny, you guys. You have that experience too. You look for just a regular pen, and then you look at your fancy brush pens, and you know, it's hilarious. I don't have a regular pen. Like, my husband goes over to my office area here, and he's like, can I just have a normal pen? Like, what's a normal pen? Okay, so this is a Kadi sketchbook. So these sketchbooks are handmade in India from recycled cotton, which I find such a cool concept. And the texture is really, I mean, look at that, deckled edges, so beautiful, very rough texture. So I personally think it's really good to work loosely with. If you want to do like super fine details, it's possible, but you might struggle a little more in the beginning. So I think this kind of paper is excellent for very flowy, very loose kind of style. This one over here is a handmade sketchbook by Denise from Switzerland, and she used arch paper or arches. It's 300 GSM cold paper, cold press. It does have texture, but it's not as rough as the other one. And I have to say, I do like the smooth transitions. But yeah, I think it's just a different vibe. Look here, how the pigment just gathered in the ridges of the paper. So I personally prefer this because I love texture. But you can try this method on different types of paper and see which outcome you like best. So this was the kari. This up here at the top is the arch or arches. And let's continue with our supplies. So I will be using this today. Let's just take out this page because it's fallen out anyways. I'm gonna put this to the side. And hi, Sylvie. Ah, my mom's here too. Wonderful. I tried to call her earlier and she didn't answer her phone. Like, oh, I hope she remembers. Okay, so for watercolors, as always, please feel free to use any watercolors you have at hand. You really do not have to use my watercolors, but just in case you do, I have Indigo, which is Kohola, and then Prussian Blue, which is Moana. I have Opera Pink, which is also called Opera Pink, and I have a color that probably very, very few of you have because I published it in 2018. I think it was a one-time deal. It's lemon yellow. So if you don't have this color, you can also use one of my other lemon yellows like pineapple, or you can use Kohola, which is super bright, almost neon, or you can even use mango, which is a medium cadmium yellow. Just something really bright if you have. If you have lemon yellow of any brand, then use this today. And my brushes will be a size 8 mop brush. This is a quill brush from Germany. And this one here is a size 4 round brush from Shimoni. So these are made in Germany, but sold in Switzerland. Again, it really doesn't matter what brand you use today. Just use what you have at hand. If you don't have a quill brush, don't worry. All this works really well with a large round brush as well. I only want to encourage you to use a really large brush today. It will force you to work more loosely and not overthink things. If you go in with like a little tiny brush, you know, from the start, you're just gonna work on the details a lot. And I kind of want to encourage you to just try and let go today. And then the star of the show, kind of, the secret star, is gonna be our wax crayons. So I couldn't find my Crayola wax crayon at first. That's why I pulled out my Neocolor 1. So this is a more fancy wax crayon, but honestly, you can just use whatever wax crayon you have, or even if you don't have wax crayons, you could use another water resistant crayon like oil pastel. Just be aware, the oil pastels, they do tend to smear a little bit. So I like using these for the wax resist technique because they do not mix with the watercolor and they will not ruin your brush at all. I'm not saying the oil pastel will ruin your brush, but it's just it's a bit more smeary, I'd say. So this is a Neocolor 1. The difference between the Neocolor 1 and 2 is just that the Neocolor 2 from Caran d'Ache are water soluble, and these ones here are water resistant. And then this is a Crayola. Very popular brand in the United States, but not easily, I mean, I can't really see them being sold, for example, over in Germany when I was there. So it's kind of tricky to get your hands on them. So considering that this is a total like kids art supply, I would suggest that whatever you can buy in your country where you're at is the thing to go with. All right, and then I have just some regular skinny washi tape. This is nothing fancy. The only thing that I pay attention to when I use washi tapes is that they are not too sticky. So if you have one that is super sticky and you're using handmade paper with a rough surface, you're very likely to tear the paper fibers. And I also usually use my pants leg, like a piece of clothing, to just, it's gonna be tricky. I'm not gonna go ahead to put my leg on the table, but you know, I'm just gonna apply the washi tape to my clothing, and then it's less sticky. It still seems pretty sticky, but also because it's such a skinny one, I'm not too concerned today. Okay, let's start taping down the paper. Of course, you can do more exact measurements, but I'm just gonna eyeball it here because everything is gonna be loose and very flowy today, so I'm not too concerned about getting, you know, the right proportions. Okay. Oh, and Debbie says there's always a candle. Ooh, that's smart. I was actually planning to do a video on different techniques on how to create white spaces in watercolors. And there are so many different ways. I mean, you know, the simplest one being you can just paint around, for example, the sun here. Right? So that would be, of course, the simplest one. The reason I'm using a wax crayon is just really that it, you know, I don't have to pay attention when I paint over the sun. I can just really go with broad strokes and just enjoy watching the movement of the colors. Okay. And Susan says, thank you for putting your Aloha watercolor names along with the common names in the email. I want to use your paints as much as possible, so I love them. I love them. Thank you so much, Susan. Okay. Yeah, you know, guys, I do hesitate sometimes because, first of all, well, okay, it's my business, and I, you know, of course, I want to promote my colors. But even more so, I really just want us to get together and paint together. So it's always like this balance for me to not talk, I don't know, not to talk too much about my paints, I guess. Because the thing I really do not want is for you to feel like, oh, I can't paint this because I don't have the exact same colors. So I really, really want you to just go ahead, use whatever you have, you know, any type of pink. It really doesn't matter what kind of blues. And then something a little darker, you know, like indigo or Payne's gray or so will work. You can even use black. Okay, let's put the tape to the side. All right. I'm looking over to the chat one more time. Yeah, Sylvie says oil pastel was not so nice on my brush. I agree. It's just, I only mention it because I thought if you really cannot find a wax crayon, just, you know, use an oil pastel. Or honestly, if you don't want to use that, then just do a little pencil reminder for your sun and just paint around it. Okay, but if you do have the wax crayon, then we're going to start with putting a sun in different spaces over on the left hand side, and we're going to put one here, and then over here we'll just do something a little bit different. All right, okay, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. You're not going to be able to see what I do here, but you can imagine a lot of my wax crayon going down here. You might be able to see kind of like a sheen possibly. So another thing is, I think we tend to draw circle shapes bigger than we intend to. So a lot of the times, especially when I paint moons with gouache, for example, it's like a last thing I put in my painting, they tend to always get huge. So I try to remind myself to start smaller. And then if need be, you know, I look at this again, and then I just go a little bigger, just as a tip. And maybe it's just me, I don't know, but I just tend to like go larger and larger because I want to get the round shape right. And then I just add a little more, and it's just, I just get super moons. Okay, so you notice probably that I put them in slightly different positions. One is more on the left-hand side, one is more on the right-hand side. over here, we can go place it over more on the right-hand side. And again, don't be too concerned about getting the wax crayon down 100%. You know, I don't think it really is a problem if there is some paint that goes into your sun. For this one down here, let's do a circle shape that's not completely round. So I'm just gonna do something like this, okay? With my wax crayon. I gotta find that shape again. Oh, here it is. So this is kind of like the sun going into the ocean, dropping slowly into the ocean. Looking over to the chat again. Oh, thank you, Amy. Amy says, I have a good balance. That's nice. Thank you. That's good to hear. Jessica says they're one of my favorites. Oh, you guys. Thank you. Amy also says she's Lilikoi Journals, in case you wonder. My cheap oil pastel seems to work just fine. Good, good. Yeah. I guess, you know, it maybe also depends on what paper you use and then the oil pastel. And if you use a brush that is more elastic and less soft, you might pick up more of the oil pastel. So I think it really depends on what supplies you use. And Kerstin said she found her Wachsmalstifte. Yes. It's such a nice word in German, isn't it? Wachsmalstifte. Wax crayons. Oh, and that's a good tip from Sylvie. She said she did use oil pastels and then her brush was a bit smeared and she was able to wash it with brush soap. Oh, good. That's actually a very good idea, and I do need to wash my brushes more often. I kind of have to admit, I tend to not do that often enough. Okay, so what's your experience, you guys, with brush soaps? Do you just use regular soap, or do you have something specific, like specific brush soap? So I'm using one that a friend of mine made herself, just, you know, really for brushes, but she made it herself. So it's very natural, has no chemicals in it. Smells good too. Okay, over here, I painted a shape that is a bit broader than on the other side. So it was like about this. This is what I drew over on this side here. And then as I said in the beginning, I'm not gonna use the wax crayon on this part. We're just gonna keep it really loose over here. Okay, hi Dawn. Dawn says she's always used the Masters soap. Well, with that name, it can't go wrong, right? The Masters. Are these the guys who also make the Stay Wet palette? The palette that you can put a piece of paper and a sponge so you can keep your gouache paints wet. Is that the same company? I wonder. Ooh, Debbie says makeup remover soap. Wow, so I don't use makeup, so I have literally zero knowledge about this, but this sounds intriguing. So is it really soap? Is it like a gel or is it like a bar of soap? And Amy's like, yeah, makeup brush soap. Oh, you guys, you are in the know. I'm just really not familiar with the makeup things. Okay, let me just take a sip of water. I forgot to bring my teacup, so I'm stuck with water. Ah, this is good. Okay, so let's start with wet on dry technique. So for this page over here, we're gonna do wet paint on dry paper, and then over on this side, we're gonna try a little bit different. We're gonna wet the paper first, but for this part on the left-hand side, I just wetted my brush, lots of water, and I'm starting with my lemon yellow. This is a very strong tinted color. So actually all of these are very, very vibrant. Okay, and now for the magic part. Stroke, stroke, stroke. And look, this is where the sun gets revealed. I just love this part. I'm like, okay, I'm done. This is super good. I really like it. So, and now you can decide, I still have paint on my brush. Do I want to continue and just paint yellow in all of my pictures? Or, you know, do I want to rinse my brush and pick up another color? So I usually continue painting. So I'm gonna just add a little bit of yellow in my panel over here. And you see I'm holding the brush really gently. I'm moving it back and forth, left to right, but not really pressing down hard. I'm picking up some more water and just very gently, without overthinking it, really just putting down some color. Okay, let's add a little bit of yellow over here as well. There really is no right or wrong for this session here today. You can just really use just colors. You don't even have to concern yourself with a coastline or something. You can just be very abstract today. I mean, the beauty is that our brain picks up so many cues, just so many little things. Just the fact that, you know, there is a round disc and something dark blue at the bottom, and you know, you automatically think sky and ocean. So that makes it easy for us to paint and not have to overthink. Okay, next, very wet brush. I picked up my opera pink. Now this is a very, very staining color. What I mean by that is that it goes into the paper fiber and sticks to the paper really fast. So mixing and lifting this particular color is maybe a bit more tricky than with other colors. Oh, look at my funny sun. It's like squished, like a mochi. Guys, I've been thinking about mochi since yesterday. It was National Mochi Day, and I've been wanting to eat one, and I haven't. So it's like, I want one. So we pronounce it mochi in Japan, but I know that over here it's pronounced mochi, which is cute. I like mochi. It's like almost like emoji. By the way, my mom also, she says emoji, which is also cute, isn't it? And we say emojis. So as you can see, I'm just slapping the paint down on the paper. I love, love, love this process. This is so good for the soul. Okay, I re-wetted my brush, picked up some more opera pink, and then for this one, I'm really gonna go all over. Even here in the bottom area. Okay. I'm looking over to the chat. And Dawn says, oh, we're still talking about the brush soaps. Yes, very good. And she said before she found the Masters, she used conditioning baby shampoo. Oh, yeah, because it was, of course, cheaper than the professional brush cleaning soap. Honestly, this is what I use too. I use just some very neutral cleaner. I mean, just so few ingredients. I can't remember the name. It's super famous in the United States. You can use it for body wash. You can use it for house cleaning. It comes in like very simple bottles, but lots of print on them. It's like a very old brand, very popular. I can't believe I can't remember the name now. And there's one that has no scent. You know, they come in peppermint and orange, I think, but I used the one without scent, and that worked pretty well.
Yeah, exactly, Amy. Thanks. Castile soap. Dr. Yeah, Bronner's? Is that it? Yeah, I think so. Huge bottles, smaller bottles. You can dilute it too. I actually love that stuff, and I add my own essential oils to the basic soap. It's really nice. I like experimenting like that. Yes, Bronner's, exactly, Tracy. Okay, next. And now the only thing we need to pay a little attention to is when we add the dark blue color, that if you do want a horizon line, like here or here, you gotta make sure that the paints you already have on the paper are not too wet. Otherwise, you know, something like this will happen, of course. So let's start with a panel where I don't really mind if the colors mix. I'm picking up some of my indigo, Kohola indigo. Starting to drop it in here at the very top. And I want to show you this up close because you can really see how the opera pink is already really in the paper. See how it doesn't lift? So I would say this is the only disadvantage of opera pink, and that's in general. It's not just my opera pink, but usually opera pink is a mix of a pigment, like a powder, and a dye. And the dyes are known to sink into the paper fiber very quickly and stay there, and then you can't move them anymore. Okay, so I'm just dabbing my brush very loosely. Dab, dab, dab. And as you can see, I'm also not filling the whole panel. I really just leave some white space, even though I have my tape down. Because I think it just gives it even more of a loose and flowy look. Okay, Jessica in the chat says that peppermint is a must-have for hot summers, was a staple with my girls. Oh, yes. You know what I love about peppermint in anything like shampoo or body wash is that it gives you this tingle and it makes the skin feel cool. But I also found out when you use too much of it, I made a body soap once with too much peppermint. I mean, it was almost like my skin burned. I was just hopping around in the shower like, ah. So definitely you gotta use the right, you know, amount, I'd say. Not too much. Okay, I'm rinsing my brush. And the reason why I said happy accidents, which is, of course, you know, a term coined by Bob Ross, is that something like this can happen. And now it doesn't really look like an ocean sunset, but I'm super fine with that. This is not what I want for this session today. I don't want perfect sunsets. I just want to have fun with my flowy colors. I re-wetted my brush, picking up some Prussian blue. And then for my ocean line over here, I'm gonna be more careful and take care that I don't really touch the yellow too much. However, I can see that it's already dry. So in this case, I don't need to worry. Just very gently pulling my brush from left to right. And of course, you know, the line is not straight, but that's totally fine. I'll add a little up here. And I will also add some indigo because I think the discrepancy between the Prussian blue and the indigo is a bit too much. I don't really think the colors go well. They go well together, but I like to mix them is what I mean. I don't like to leave the Prussian blue just as a pure color on the page when I also have indigo on it. I hope that makes sense. Really like to mix it up. Okay, I find it's a bit too dark. So you know, the contrast between the really bright colors here and the very dark at the top is a bit too harsh for me. So I'm drying my brush. I rinsed it first, I'm drying it. And now I'm putting, or I'm pulling some of the dark pigment back into my thirsty brush. Now you can also use a paper towel for this process, but I find sometimes that the texture of the paper towel is then visible on the paper, which probably doesn't matter because this is such a textured paper. Let's try it out. But this is just a tip, especially if you work with hot press. You might just want to prefer using your brush to lift up some paint again. Okay. So I think I'm going to also, you know what? I think I'm going to mix myself a little bit of a purple. Let's see, I would usually use a different color to mix purple, like an ultramarine blue, but let's see how it goes with these two. Opera pink and Prussian blue. That's beautiful. All right, I'm gonna just paint over this area and also drop some into my ocean down here. Okay, and let's put in some over here as well. Gotta be careful. So once you start mixing the purple with the yellow, it's gonna turn brown. So again, if that happened, I'm just gonna lift up some of the paint here again. All right. Oh, hello. I just saw we have a new face around here. Tipeka Atkins. Hello. Okay, so just a really quick repetition. I'm using handmade watercolors in lemon yellow, opera pink, Prussian blue, and indigo. Synthetic indigo, that is, not the real thing. I'm using a Khadi paper, Khadi sketchbook. This is 100% cotton, made from recycled fibers, cotton fibers. And I have a quill brush, size 8, and then I drew in the suns with a water-resistant wax crayon. It's kind of nice. It's almost like I'm doing a little summary of what we're doing today. Okay, now I'm rinsing my brush. I'm picking up some more of my indigo. I'm just gonna mix it in with the purple I just created earlier. All right, and then for my second panel over here, let's just go really loose left and right. If you've watched my seascape, mini seascapes video on my YouTube channel here, I showed this technique, among many others, on how to paint water real quick. Okay, I'm gonna come back to this panel later once it's dry to add a little bit of a coastline here. Actually, you know what? We can try and add it in already a little bit because the paper is dry over here. So usually if there were paint down here, I would wait. But because I have a little space here, I can just start adding a little bit of a coastline. And I'm gonna drop in some more paint here. I'm rinsing my brush, I'm picking up a tiny bit of Prussian blue and adding that to the still wet paint so it just blends really smoothly and nicely. All right. Gonna do something similar down here. I'm still using the indigo mix with the purple I mixed earlier. It's almost too watery, I think. Hold on, let me add a bit more pigment. And just gently left and right. Work with some white space here. Don't feel that you have to fill in all the water. You know, you can just go very gently left and right and just leave a few strokes of white, so to speak, or you can leave some white paper shining through. Going back to my opera pink and then adding this in between. But again, I want to have a few spots where the white paper shines through. I think it just really adds to a more loose look of the whole piece when you leave a bit of white space. But for some balance up here, I will go back to my darker color. Again, I'm using my indigo purple mix. And just painting a very loose sky in here. Now you can see that the pink was still wet and it starts to blend with the sky. If you don't want that to happen, then just make sure you leave a little bit of paper space in between your colors. I'm just reading Pamela's comment that she fights her severe pain with painting, and especially the free-flowing and seascapes. I'm glad to hear, Pamela, that you have a way to deal with that. It must be really hard. I mean, I can't even talk about pain. I have like this shoulder thing for years now, but you know, I can manage it, and it's just something where I really agree that art is a mental outlet, but also, yeah, almost physical, isn't it? Just breathing, painting, watching the pigments melt into each other. Yeah, I can only agree and say yes, absolutely. It's probably the best way I've ever had to cope with almost anything. So thanks for sharing, Pamela. Okay, I switched to my size 4 round brush, and now I'm gonna pick up the indigo paint with almost no water. It's a lot of pigment, almost like gouache consistency, very thick, to draw in some very loose palm trees. And literally what I'm doing is it's just some wonky star shapes and some little trunks here. That's all there is to it. And then some shrubbery down here is basically just dabbing your brush like that. And again, our brain will translate these type of shapes very easily. So don't worry about getting it right in quotation marks. Just play with some suggestions here. Okay, zooming out again. Okay. I honestly think we're done with this part. I mean, I could, you know, of course I could let it dry. I could add some more details, but I'm actually happy with this. And I just love this part where the paints flow together, and you know, they create these bursts of paint. I just really love that so much. Okay, let's move on to the right hand side. And just to recap, I did a little bit of wax crayon on this side here. It was this shape, and I left everything just paper on this side, so no wax crayon on this side. And different from this page, I'm gonna start with laying down some water first. So I have just water on my brush, and I think you can actually see it. Can you see it? I hope so. I turn my lamps into an angle where it should be showing a little bit of a sheen on the paper. And don't worry about filling the whole page. Again, if there are white spots, that's actually a good thing. So just lay down some water. You see? It's pooling a little bit down here, so I think I might go and... Actually, no, I'm not too worried. If you're using a sketchbook and your water pools here in the spine area, that might be the only thing that you might want to pay attention to, because sometimes the paint goes through the spine into one of your other pages, previous pages. So then you can just pick up some of the paint that dropped into the spine area like I'm doing right now. Or in case of the water, just use your paper towel or cotton towel. Just lightly dab some of it up again. I'm actually way more careful now in this live stream than I would usually be. I honestly, when I just paint for myself, I just really let go. I mean, it's different today because I'm explaining things, etc. But I really want you to feel absolutely free and comfortable to just let go, and really, you can totally ignore all the detail things that I do too. Okay, so I put down some lemon yellow, and you should see a difference to this technique. So between the wet on wet and the wet on dry, the blends here should be much softer when you put down the paint. So in this case, my yellow is kind of going into the paper and is almost disappearing into the paper. Okay, so how are you guys feeling? Are you painting along? Nina actually says she is painting along, but she's in Spain and it dries so fast, it's hard. So Nina, when you have a very dry and hot climate, then if you have, using cotton paper makes it a bit easier, especially for these blends. So if you use regular like cellulose paper, you're gonna have a bit more of a hard time with the blends of the colors. So of course I don't want to encourage you to spend, you know, so much money on the real cotton paper 100%. There's also paper that has like 50% cotton and 50% cellulose, and even that works, you know, better for this kind of technique. Other than that, you can use this technique I just showed here, wet on wet. So you wet down the whole paper first, and then you drop in the paints really quick all across the page. You know, don't focus on one color too much. Just work fairly quickly with the wet on wet technique. If anybody has more tips working in a hot, dry climate, then please drop them in the comments. This is all I can think of right now. Okay, and I picked up my opera pink and dropping it right into my yellow, and I love how it creates this bright orangey red. So the reason I'm using opera pink is not just because it's my second favorite color after teal. I also love it because it's an excellent mixing color. So all the pinks, magentas, they just mix so well with other primary colors. You know, they create super vibrant colors. If you use a red, for example, you might end up with quite muddy colors. And especially for sunsets, I think it's, even though this is totally over the top, you know, this is not like a realistic sunset, I much prefer this to just like muddy brown colors, of course. Okay, and then for the bottom here, I'm gonna make a mix of my Prussian blue and my indigo. I still have some indigo here on the palette, so I'm just gonna use what I already have on my palette, picking up some indigo for this nice dark navy indigo color here. And now this is all gonna totally blend and explode because it's all still wet. Just thought I'd give you some warning here. Okay, and now I'm gonna pick up some more indigo paint, less water, more pigment, and add a few strokes. And again, those are like exploding like this. If you don't want this kind of explosive look, then just wait a little bit longer, or in case of Nina in Spain, just 2 seconds until everything is a little more dry. And then you can add, you know, more details, more lines that look like lines and not explode into the other colors. I love this so much. It's just so beautiful. It's these colors together, the dark indigo and the bright pink and yellow. Okay, now I'm gonna go back to my opera pink and just drop a little bit of my pink into the dark blue area down here. All right, and this is it. I just had an idea. So this is not planned, but I just thought, how about I pick up some of the, okay, this is just an experiment. It might not work. Let's see how it looks. It's actually not working that well. Okay. I was thinking about lifting some of the paint up to create some sun rays. But as I mentioned earlier, this opera pink is very hard to lift because it goes into the paper fiber so quickly. So nice idea, but meh, fail. You know, the reason I'm still trying is that I can actually see it works a little bit. So sometimes when it dries, you can see the effect better. It actually is pretty cool. I know you probably can't see it at all, but it just very very subtle effect. So all I'm doing is I'm dabbing my brush on my paper towel to get the moisture out and then dragging it across my painting here. And you have to rinse it every now and then to have a really clean brush. Oh wow, did you just hear that growl? That was my stomach. I guess I'm hungry. Still really early here, right? It's maybe 8:50 a.m. at this point now. So I usually don't eat first thing in the morning, like not at all. I have lots of tea, preferably green tea first, and then I eat later. Like I usually just eat lunch. Because if I eat breakfast and I can just go straight back to bed, I'm like toast. Okay. Ooh, I do like this. So, okay, as a tip, if you want to try the sun rays as well, you should try with that particular part I'm doing right now before you even start with the ocean. I know this is futile to say because you guys have probably already done everything I did, but just in case, or maybe you want to repaint all this later, and especially if you're using a different type of pink, you might be able to lift the paint really beautifully. Okay. Sylvie says she thought that Leo was around. Oh my god, you could hear you could hear the stomach. Funny. Actually, Leo is around, but he's sleeping, so it wasn't him. Oh, Leo is my neighbor's dog. He comes visit every day, though, so he always plays a big part in my live streams, too. There's also another dog, and she also comes over every day, so I have borrowed dogs that don't even realize that they're not my dogs anymore. I don't think they really know that they're two different separate homes at this point. They just go back and forth however they please. All right, I have a question for you. So, would you like me to demonstrate the sun rays technique one more time over on this side so you can see better how it works when it's, you know, when it's actually working? Or should I do just something else? Could you let me know in the comments? So you can just type sun rays if you want me to demonstrate again, or I don't know, something else. Okay, so that's a yes for the sun rays, I would assume. Something else from Tracy and sun rays. Okay, we have 2-1 votes for now. Let's get one more. Sun rays. Okay. Tracy, you can do something else. I know you can. Okay, so I'm gonna do, let's do the sun down here, a bit further down, just so we have a little bit of a variety going on here. I'm doing this exact same shape. All right, picking up my big brush, and I'm gonna lay down some water first. If you're using paper that's not cotton, I recommend that you do not put that much water down on your paper, just because it tends to pool more on the cellulose paper than on the cotton paper. It just goes right in the cotton paper, but with the cellulose paper, it tends to just pool a lot. Let's see. I'm looking for my Quinacridone magenta. I'll be right back. Just 1 second. Let's see. This looks good. And ultramarine blue. Okay, the reason I'm using different colors now is that I can demonstrate better. This technique, it does work with these other colors as well, but it just doesn't really show up that well. So that's why I'm using different colors. Of course, you don't have to. Just feel free to try this technique with the colors you're already using, and then maybe even with colors that are different, and then you can see the difference for yourself. So this is Quinacridone pink or Quinacridone magenta. You can see it looks a bit darker, a bit more muted than the opera pink. But fun fact, there is a little bit of this pigment in my opera pink. So this opera pink consists of different pigments and dyes, but there is a little bit of this particular Quinacridone magenta, or it's called actually Orchid, if you want to go with the Alohawatercolors name. And then this is Ultramarine blue, which is a warm blue. It's leaning red. It's also a granulating color. And the name in my Aloha Watercolors. Range is Kalani. All right, be careful when you mix your blue with the yellow because it naturally turns green, which, you know, I don't mind that much. But again, this is something you have to be aware of when you paint these loose sunset scenes, that as soon as your colors mix, things are gonna happen. Okay, just added some indigo down here at the bottom. Now I'm going back to my size 4 round brush. I have my paper towel ready to just go and dab. And now you're just gonna go lift the paint, rinse your brush, dab it on the paper towel. Don't use a soft brush for this. So I'm gonna actually switch my brush to something a bit more elastic. Okay. Rinsing it, drying it. Oh, my poor brush has hair sticking out. I didn't treat my brush right. Bad, Keiko. Okay. So rinse it after each stroke, dry it, and then just drag it through your paint. If it doesn't work for you, try a slightly larger brush, and if you have, try a brush where the bristles aren't so soft. So, for example, a quill brush will very likely not work for this technique. You can even use a flat brush or a filbert. You don't have to use a round brush for this. Rinsing, drying, and then you can actually go over the same sun rays multiple times. Okay. I just looked over to the chat and saw that Pamela said she misses Europe and she misses the German cuisine. I miss pretzels. I will always miss pretzels. It's just my favorite thing ever. You know, the large soft pretzels from Switzerland and Germany. Oh, they're so good. They're crunchy on the outside and soft and yummy. I have to stop talking, you guys. I'm gonna miss pretzels so much otherwise. Okay, here we go. And we can even take this further. Why not go into the blue area with our lifting technique? Let's rinse my brush one more time. I know I can get a bit lazy with the rinsing the brush and dabbing it, but it really does work better when you rinse it. And just for demonstration purposes, see how well the lifting works down here where the ultramarine blue is. So one more point I want to say here is that because this is handmade, rough cotton paper with a very rough texture, lifting like this doesn't work as well as it would, for example, on a hot press paper, which is a paper that has a very smooth surface, or a fine grain paper. So just another point for you to remember, if you like, is that if you want to lift stuff, it's better to use a paper that does not have as much of a rough texture as mine has here. Okay, here we go. Rinsing, lifting. Let me show you an example. I just remembered I have a very good lifting example with some other papers that I can show you. Let's zoom out a little bit. So this is the arch or arches paper. So you can see here the very same technique I just demonstrated to you, but it because the paper surface is much smoother, it works so much better. This was another live stream from last year we did here on YouTube where I, demonstrated the lifting technique with this example. And oh, my other sketchbook is in the watercolor studio, in the pigments studio downstairs. So, but I think it was pretty clear, right? The different kind of papers can lead to different outcomes as well for your techniques. So sometimes if you get really frustrated that something looks really not like you saw somebody else do it, it might also just be a paper issue. Okay, so I think we're done with this part. I'm just looking over the whole double page spread. The only thing is maybe that we have a coastline here with trees, and that's the only one. So I usually try and pair these things a bit more. Like for example, I had one here and then it picks up here. So it creates kind of like a more balanced situation. However, because I have so much indigo down here and here and here, and it's pretty dark, I think we're fine. Might maybe add some more indigo down here at the bottom, just to balance out this really dark spot over there on the left-hand side a bit more. Okay. All right, so the paper is still pretty wet, which means I should not remove the masking tape. I could try on this side. Let's see, very carefully. A good tip for the masking tape removal is to use a hairdryer first or a heating tool. Whenever you heat up glue of any kind, usually, glue from tapes, it will come off the paper more easily. Okay, so I'm going to just go to the hairdryer for a minute and I'll be right back. Go. And Pamela says, your paints dry so vibrantly. Thank you. And just one more thing. It's interesting because this particular paper, the Kadi paper, is actually a paper that mutes the colors when they dry. So the other paper I showed you doesn't do that. The colors pretty much stay super vibrant, but this paper is known to mute down the colors. And yeah, if you use opera pink, which usually contains a part of neon, you will have some very vibrant colors. Okay, and Mom says, I like especially Last Sunset with Beautiful Sunbeam. This one, huh? Glad you like it, Mom. Okay, so let's see. So for removing the tape, first tip was to heat the tape up and then pull it off slowly at an angle like this. So don't go like straight up, just always go to the side at an angle. If you see that it rips the paper, you might just want to start from the other side. And believe me, I've had lots of ripping paper washi tape issues. Sometimes it's so bad that I actually left the tape on the paper. I had instances where I removed it and then I went back in with like pliers to, you know, make the fibers of the paper look less destroyed. It's kind of hard to describe what I did there, but I kind of tried to push the fibers back into shape. So at this point, I kind of know which tapes to use with what paper. There are tapes that work well on one paper but not on the other. So I always recommend that you test out the tape and paper combination first. Like maybe, you know, on the last page of your sketchbook, or maybe just a sample piece of your paper if you have. Because, yeah, this can be really frustrating. You have this beautiful painting, or, you know, you just had a really relaxed painting session and then you have trouble with the tape and the paper. Okay, here we go. This went pretty well. There's a little bit of paper that came off, but as I said in the beginning, this is a bit of a theme with the handmade paper with rough textured surface. So if you want to avoid that, I really just recommend doing this exercise without any tape at all, you know, just free flowing. You can maybe pencil in the outlines first, very roughly, before you start painting, so you have some kind of a border that you can orient yourself with or at. Ah, Dawn says she covered the rip with white gouache. Very smart. See, this is another this is another solution you could try. All right, my dears, I hope you had fun today in this session, and I hope this is maybe an exercise you like to come back to when you're, you know, a bit stressed from the day. Just sit down in the evening and just decompress and paint some very loose sunsets with beautiful, vibrant colors. Okay, so for the next session, let me see. Next week, I have a big shop update on Sunday, August 18th. And therefore, I'm going to focus on that. So I'm not sure if we're going to have a live stream next week. So this is the shop update, August 18th, Sunday. What I would love to do, though, is maybe do a live stream where I can show you the new colors. So it's actually double, 9 colors. So what you guys think? This might be an idea, and we can paint. I'm just thinking of it because I'm literally staring at 2 birds that I painted with the new colors. So if I can make time for that, it would be next week, probably towards the end of the week, I'd say, like, you know, same time-ish, Thursday or Friday. And then the week after, you know, for week 4 of this challenge, the Aloha 24 August challenge, I will definitely do another live stream with the Galaxy, what was it called? Galaxy Ocean, I think. Yeah, so I'll definitely do a live stream with that theme or that prompt, and possibly one next week for the new set. But as always, I will let you know both on my Instagram, Alohawatercolors 808, and the Aloha Studios, and also via my newsletter. If you are not subscribed to my newsletter, I'm going to leave a link down below in the subscription. It's really the best way to stay updated about shop updates, new releases, and also my live streams and new videos I do as well. Okay, All of you, thank you so much for joining today. I really hope you enjoyed this session. Please leave me a comment down below if you like. That would definitely help for my videos to get found here on YouTube. And I wish you all a wonderful day or evening or morning, depending where you are. All right. Aloha. See you next time. Bye.